Ever had a relationship that just sort of fizzled out? No huge fight, no dramatic betrayal, just that slow, creeping feeling that something was really, truly off? You're not alone. So many new relationships, some say as many as 70%, don't make it past that first year. Often, they just crumble under the weight of things we didn't expect, or because deep down, we just weren't truly a match. We hear all the time about the big, obvious red flags: cheating, lying, blatant disrespect. And yeah, most people will say a lack of trust is a huge deal breaker. But what about the relationship killers that aren't so loud? The ones that are quieter, sneakier, and way more personal? These are the deal breakers they probably won't tell you about, sometimes because they don't even fully get them themselves. Or maybe, just maybe, they do know what they need, but they're not saying it out loud to you. This isn't about things that are universally wrong. It's about those deeply personal ways you just don't click. The things that silently mess up a connection and leave you confused and heartbroken because they're all about your specific, often unspoken, needs. Why this matters: figuring out these subtle, personal deal breakers is a big deal. Why? Because these aren't just tiny annoyances. They're the quiet things that build resentment, slowly kill intimacy, and create those invisible cracks that eventually bring the whole relationship crashing down. When your really important personal needs aren't being met, again and again, or when parts of who you are just don't mesh with your partner, it's not about blaming someone. It's about seeing a major mismatch that, if you ignore it, basically becomes an unforgivable hit to your own happiness. And those unspoken expectations? Those are often the real silent killers. If you keep what you need bottled up, you're just setting yourself up for disappointment when those needs, surprise, surprise, don't get met. Today, we're not just rattling off generic advice. We're getting into the nitty-gritty of these hidden deal breakers. The point isn't to give you a new list to judge people with, but to hand you a mirror. It's about understanding yourself and what you absolutely can't compromise on if you want a relationship that doesn't just scrape by, but actually makes you happy. Let us begin with mismatched core values and life aspirations, the unspoken blueprint. We all know the big ones: religion, whether or not to have kids. Those usually come up. But being truly on the same page with values goes way deeper, right into the core of how you think life should be lived. Think about the principles you just won't budge on. Maybe you absolutely need to keep learning and growing, and your partner is totally happy never picking up another book. Or perhaps you're fired up about building an empire while they're dreaming of a super simple, quiet life. Neither of these is wrong, but if your basic drives are heading in opposite directions, you're pretty much guaranteed to crash or just drift painfully apart. Take how you view money, for example. It's not just about one being a saver and the other a spender. What if one of you believes in being totally open about finances, and the other has a history of secret debts, or is just really casual about money commitments? For some, that's not just a disagreement. It's a fundamental break in trust and a sign you just can't manage life together. Or what about your lifestyle? One person might imagine weekends packed with parties and adventures, while the other just craves quiet time at home. These aren't just small preferences. They show what you each need to recharge, connect, and feel joy. When these deep-down ideas about how to live, what's important, and where you're headed don't line up, even if everything else seems perfect, there's going to be this constant, low-level friction that just wears the relationship down. It's about realizing that these differences can turn into huge roadblocks if there's no way to meet in the middle. It really comes down to understanding what a meaningful life looks like to you. If your partner's idea of that isn't just different, but actually pulls against yours, that's a personal deal breaker. They might never say it, but you'll feel it in the growing unhappiness. Now let us look at emotional needs and support styles, the silent cries for connection. Everyone has basic emotional needs in a relationship. Things like needing to feel important and cared for, needing to feel like your opinion matters, and needing to feel like you're capable and contributing. When these needs go unmet for too long, the relationship basically starves. And a lot of these unmet needs can turn into deal breakers that are incredibly personal. Picture someone who's a bit anxious in relationships and really thrives on frequent reassurance and hearing, "I love you." Now, imagine them with someone who's more reserved, who shows love by doing things but rarely says the comforting words their partner craves. Neither person is wrong, but the anxious partner is probably going to feel unseen and insecure all the time, while the more reserved partner might feel pressured or like they can't breathe. This isn't about one person being too needy or the other being too cold. It's a fundamental mismatch in how you both give and receive love and feel secure. And emotional support itself? It's more complicated than just being there when things go wrong. It's about how you're there. Do you need someone to just listen without judging, to offer solutions, to give you a hug, or to give you some space? If your partner keeps offering support in a way that feels unhelpful or makes you feel bad, to you, even if they mean well, you're going to feel a growing disconnect. Feeling emotionally safe, truly seen, and accepted for who you are, quirks and all, is so important. If you always feel like you have to hide parts of yourself, or if your attempts to be vulnerable are brushed off or misunderstood, that's a silent relationship killer. These are the kinds of deep, personal disconnects that don't show up on a first date checklist, but can make a long-term relationship feel impossible for you. The third relationship deal breaker is communication and conflict styles, the unheard dialogues. You hear it all the time. Poor communication is a top reason relationships end. But this deal breaker is about more than just not talking enough. It's about really basic differences in how you communicate, especially when things get tense. Some people need to talk things out right away, looking for a solution and connection through talking. Others need time and space to process how they feel before they can even put it into words. If one partner is always pushing to talk while the other pulls away, you get stuck in this painful cycle of frustration and feeling like you're never heard. Think about the need for intellectual connection. For some people, deep, stimulating conversations are what keep a relationship alive. If their partner mostly sticks to small talk or avoids complicated topics, a really important kind of intimacy is missing for the person who loves that mental back and forth. On the flip side, someone who prefers light, playful chat might find a partner who wants to analyze every little thing totally draining. Then there's how you handle arguments. Is one person a yeller while the other just shuts down when voices get raised? Does one partner tend to blame or criticize? Hello, Gottman's Four Horsemen? Look 'em up. While the other needs to work together to find a solution? Some people are fine with direct confrontation. Others find it really upsetting and need a gentler approach. A partner who constantly gives you the silent treatment, refuses to talk about problems, or always blames you, makes it impossible to resolve anything in a healthy way. If your basic ways of thinking, expressing yourselves, and handling disagreements are always clashing, it doesn't matter how much you love each other. That daily friction will become a huge personal deal breaker. These are the unspoken preferences that decide whether you feel understood or just constantly misunderstood. The fourth relationship deal breaker is lifestyle rhythms and future pacing, the out-of-sync beats. This one is about the subtle but really powerful ways your ideal daily life and your plans for the future can be totally out of sync with your partner's, creating an unspoken deal breaker. It's not just about those big life goals, but the actual rhythm and speed of your everyday lives. Imagine you're an early bird who loves a structured day, packed with things to do. Your partner, though, might be a night owl who likes to go with the flow and be spontaneous. At first, this might not seem like a big deal. But over time, if your natural energy cycles and how you manage your time and life are totally different, it can lead to nonstop frustration. You might think they're lazy. They might think you're too uptight. The problem isn't the preference itself, but how those clashing preferences play out when you're sharing a life. Think about ambition and how quickly you each want to reach your goals. One partner might be super focused on their career, willing to make big sacrifices now for a payoff later. The other might care more about work-life balance, travel, or enjoying life now instead of climbing a corporate ladder. If one person is always pushing forward super fast and the other prefers a slower pace, the gap between you can get so wide it feels impossible to cross. This also includes different ideas about how much time to spend on hobbies, seeing friends, or even just having personal downtime. These aren't usually things people call deal breakers at the start. But if your basic lifestyle rhythms and the speed you want to live life at are drastically different, it can quietly pull your relationship apart. The fifth and final relationship deal breaker is boundary blindness and respect deficits, the trampled inner sanctum. Respect is obviously a cornerstone of any healthy relationship, but personal deal breakers often pop up when there's this consistent, even if it's subtle, lack of regard for your personal boundaries, your beliefs, or just your individual world. We're not talking about obvious disrespect, which is a more glaring red flag, but more about a pattern of your partner just not seeing or honoring your invisible fences. Maybe you have a deep spiritual belief that your partner doesn't share. That's fine. But if they subtly make fun of it, dismiss how important it is to you, or constantly try to argue you out of it, that's a huge lack of respect for your inner world. It becomes a personal deal breaker because it tells you that a core part of who you are isn't safe or valued in the relationship. Or think about boundaries around privacy. Maybe you need a certain amount of personal space or time alone to recharge, and your partner sees this as rejection or constantly intrudes on that need. Or perhaps they have a habit of oversharing details about your relationship with other people, making you feel exposed. Or maybe they just don't respect your no in small ways, pushing your boundaries bit by bit until you feel unheard or like you don't matter. This also stretches to how they treat your friends and family. If they're always putting down people you care about, or make zero effort with your support system, it sends a pretty clear message about their respect for your connections, and really, for you. These might not be big, dramatic blow-ups, but more like a slow, steady chipping away at your sense of self and respect within the relationship. Realizing that you need your boundaries and core beliefs to be honored, even if your partner doesn't fully share them, is a huge step in spotting these personal deal breakers. The what now? Empowering your choices. So what do you do with all this information? The first step is some serious self-honesty. Think back on your past relationships. What were those things that always frustrated you? The things that made you feel unseen, unheard, or just fundamentally mismatched, even if you couldn't quite call them deal breakers back then? What are your absolute must-haves to feel safe, respected, and truly connected? This isn't about making an impossibly long list of demands or trying to find someone perfect. It's about understanding your core needs so well that you can spot when a potential relationship, or even one you're in now, is just not going to work with them. This self-knowledge? That's your superpower. It helps you make smarter choices, communicate what you need more clearly. Though, let's be real, some personal deal breakers are about personalities clashing in ways that talking can't fix. And walk away from situations that are bound to cause you pain, not because the other person is bad, but because they're just not the right fit for you. Realizing that ending a relationship over a truly personal, deeply felt deal breaker isn't a failure, but actually an act of huge self-respect and a step toward a connection that's genuinely right for you in the future. We've explored some of the often hidden reasons relationships don't work out, those mismatched core values, unmet emotional needs, clashing communication styles, incompatible lifestyle rhythms, and that disregard for personal boundaries. These are the unforgivable issues, not because they're necessarily mean-spirited, but because ignoring them means betraying your own deepest needs and your chance at a truly compatible partnership. They're why relationships sometimes just quietly fade, leaving you wondering what went wrong. The truth? They often go unspoken because we haven't really figured them out for ourselves. Or maybe we're scared to ask for things that feel too specific, too demanding. But knowing your personal deal breakers is honestly one of the best tools you have for building relationships that are healthier and happier. So, what's one category of the personal deal breaker we talked about that really hit home for you today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. It's a great way for us all to learn from each other. And if this got you thinking, please give this video a like, subscribe for more on figuring out the tricky stuff in relationships, and maybe share it with someone who you think might be quietly struggling with these kinds of unspoken issues. Also, check out the links in the description at the bottom of your screen. Your journey to a truly fulfilling connection starts with understanding what's truly a deal breaker for you.